So the FSI is all about protectionism, but it's about a good protectionism. It's not about shielding European companies or European business from competition. It's about protecting the competition. It's about ensuring that businesses operating inside the EU don't benefit from the state supports outside of the EU. We have stated rules which govern subsidies in the EU. We have rules about imports, the anti-subsidy rules, which equalize conditions of competition between imported and domestic products, and FSR will equalize competition as far as the foreign subsidies are concerned. So that's the primary objective. On the practical side, of course, one of the implications of the FSR will be that additional red tape will be created. The businesses will need another set of clearances to conduct M&A deals in Europe.
Yeah, thank you very much. And indeed, what I find highly relevant for companies active within the European Union is that basically all corporations, regardless of their country of origin and primary location, will be subject to this new regime if they meet two thresholds or two conditions, really. First, they receive a foreign financial contribution from a governmental entity outside of the European Union. And second, they engage in major M&A deals and public procurement. Now, I just mentioned briefly the major M&A deals, and if we say just in an M&A context, those deals would basically have to meet two main thresholds. The first threshold is that in your regular acquisition, the target company, or in a joint venture scenario, the joint venture company, or in an outright merger, the merging companies would be located within the European Union and generate a revenue of more than 500 million euros within the European Union. So that refers to the target company, to the joint venture company, or to one of the merging companies. So this is quite a high threshold. And now the second threshold that needs to be complied with is that the parties to the transaction would have received a financial contribution from a government entity outside of the European Union of more than 50 million euro within the last 3 years before concluding the agreement. So this is a relatively low threshold. So I was talking about the financial contribution. In talking to clients, they seem kind of, puzzled about the word and what it really means. Would you like to tell us more about that?
Of course. The financial contribution, in fact, is an easy piece of the FSR because the term comes from the WTO. We have 30 years of jurisprudence interpreting what the financial contribution means, and we have as many years of the Commission's practice applying those rules. And financial contributions, in essence, is a measure taken by the government or by a public entity or even by a private entity if acting under the entrustment or direction of the government which transfers economic resources to the recipient. And financial contributions can come in any shapes or forms. That can be cash grants, loans, guarantees. It can be purchases from the government, it can be sales to the government. The FSI intentionally leaves the list open in order to ensure that all financial contributions are captured and no circumvention takes place.
Thank you very much, Nikolay. And often companies ask us, how are we supposed to gather this data on foreign financial contribution and, to be able to compile the required notification forms? Do you have a hint for our clients?
Yes, of course. It's one of the most frequent questions that we hear from the clients, and the problem is that in the company's records, nowhere the list of financial contribution is written or is reflected as such. So every time you would need to compile, you would need to start from the scratch. But there are three recommendations we typically come up with when we advise the clients on the data collections. So first delineate the parameter within the group of the entities that will be reporting, because the reporting will have to be done at the group level. Secondly, do screen all the group companies for the most distortive subsidies, such as unlimited guarantees or non-OECD compliant export credits. Third, for other subsidies, use financial statements. It's actually all in financial statement, profit and loss statement and balance sheet. Select the big jurisdictions where the total amount of contribution exceeds 45 million threshold for the last 3 years, and only for those jurisdictions send a detailed template that we have developed to compile detailed data on the financial contributions. And if you do it the way we recommend, it's going to be a very cost-efficient and relatively time-efficient exercise as well. So we have a lot of know-how and are happy to guide the clients on this.
This is very helpful to know because many clients actually do require a pragmatic approach from us. And in that context, clients also ask, are there certain industries that are more prone to an investigation by the European Commission, something that we can get inspired from your practice within the trade sphere?
I mean, the Commission is tight-lipped on that because, of course, FSI is a non-discriminatory and even-handed instrument. But given what's happening in the European economy, of course, everything, any business related to the Green Deal or to energy is likely to be affected by the FSI. And as far as jurisdictions are concerned, it's an open secret that China is one of the primary targets just simply because there is so much anti-subsidy practice with regard to its imports. And the United States, with its Inflation Reduction Act, is, of course, another very imminent target under the FSI. With all that, I think having discussed the thresholds and the data collection and going back a bit to the M&A field where you practice, Andrea, what would be your practical recommendations for the investors in light of the impending deadline? Yeah,
indeed. The first recommendation is to keep an eye on the timeline. And in that context, we should also mention that as of the 12th of October, the FSR is going to fully apply. But already now, for deals that have signed after the 12th of July of this year, deals cannot, if they close after the 12th of October, they still need to be notified with the European Commission, right? So there's a transitory period here, and we need to assess in every deal whether or not we would need to consult the European Commission already now. Having said that, as is the case with merger proceedings, there's also going to be a pre-notification discussion with the European Commission that can take several months, several weeks, several months, depends on the complexity of the deal. And on top of that, as is the case in merger procedures before the European Commission, we will need to allocate 25 working days for a phase 1 investigation and 90 days for a phase 2 investigation. Though we don't believe that many phase 2 investigations will happen, at least not in the beginning. But this is the time that needs to definitely be accorded in the SPA and also take account of the long stop date. Now, that was the first practical recommendation. The second one is we need to include in the SPAs certain conditions precedent that allocate not only the merger control conditions precedent and FDI, foreign direct investment conditions precedents, but also the Foreign Subsidies Regulation.
I think this is very helpful. So thank you for these recommendations. And I'm sure that the clients are already lining up to call you for even more recommendations with regard to the FSR.
Thank you so much, Nikolay. As always, it's a pleasure working with you on this FSR and discussing with you what it is to come up. Thank you so much for the discussion today. And I hope, we hope that you like the discussion today. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us anytime. Thank you very much.